Hello, I'm Bryan Glick. I'm the editor-in-chief of Computer Weekly.
And I'm Lenchner, CEO of Bright Data.
And in this podcast, we're going to be talking about a topic where there's a lot of it and a lot to say about it, and that's data. Now, I'm sure you've all at some point come across some of the statistics about the vast quantities of data that exist in our increasingly digital world. And I don't want to disappoint you by not giving you a nice big number to think about at the start of our conversation today. Apparently, the total amount of data created, captured, copied, and consumed in the world was expected to reach 59 zettabytes in 2020. That's according to research by IDC. That doesn't mean a lot to you. Well, a zettabyte is 2 to the power of 70. Or putting that in a slightly more easy to visualize number, that's approximately a 1 followed by 21 zeros of bytes. Put it another way, it's 1 trillion gigabytes. It's a lot. Now, according to the people who count all this data, more data was generated in the last 2 years than in the entirety of human history ever before that. In businesses these days, data is considered so important that in the ever-developing language of technology, people now analyze it, process it, mine it. They store it in warehouses and in lakes. It's said to be the new oil and more valuable than gold. In short, there's a lot of data out there. And if you ask a lot of organizations, they would also say they're drowning in it, even as they focus on accumulating ever more of it. Now, data is your thing. You're an expert in this in this world of data for us that we're talking about today. Perhaps we could start off by asking you to give us some context to this. What's going on in the world of data as it relates to enterprises?
Sure, Brian, and thanks. I completely agree with what you just shared. I want to add on top of that some researchers claim that in 2025, those 50-something zettabytes that are currently structure the internet will be, the same amount of data will be generated on a daily basis. So we're going to look back 4 years from recording this podcast, and we're just going to say, oh, wow, we just talked a lot about data, but it's actually very slim to what we have today, 5 years ahead. So I'll put a note in my calendar to check it in a few years from now.
Yeah, how fortunate we are. There is so little data around us at the moment.
Yeah. So we help enterprises and companies at any size to collect web data in large scale. This is what we do here in Bright Data. Our mission, I would say, is to shine a bright light on the internet and making it transparent again, basically solving two issues that I think that are growing in correlation with the growth in data. The first issue is that although we're talking about publicly available data, if you can open your browser and see this data, it means that anyone should be able to see it. But here's the first issue. It's not actually available. If, for example, you're a business wants to collect data in large scale to analyze it and to get decisions from it, you'll get blocked. I mean, and you'll get blocked fast. This is one issue. And again, this issue is becoming more and more severe when there's more data to collect. Again, publicly available data, or what should be publicly available data. The second problem is that it's so segmented that every user, almost every user on the web sees the data slightly different. The easiest example to understand what I just said is to just open at the same time the same product page on an e-commerce website. I'm here in Israel, you're in the UK, sharing the link over Skype or something like that, and most chances that we'll see different content. For example, we'll see different prices. How can you compete this way if you're collecting data and there's so much around it and it can give you so much edge and benefits, but it's just wrong? I mean, it's just half truth. Actually, it's not half truth. It's probably way lower than that, because you just see what you're seeing, which as an individual user, and you want to see the absolute truth, which means that you need to see this data from hundreds of millions of different eyes. So this is just two of the problems that enterprises and basically any other company, no matter what the size is, are need to to fight today in order to see the truth. And without gaining this visibility, this data, which you just said is the new oil, I'm saying, by the way, that it's the new water, can't really be used. These enterprises are using us and other data collection companies for market research, for testing and verifying products, for exploring consumer demand, as well as predicting it, or for simply sizing up the competition. So a world without access to this data will be a world without competition, and that's not a good thing for us, for any of us, the consumers.
It's so very true what you're saying there. We introduced this by talking about the volume of data, but it's the complexity as well that makes it such a challenge for organizations to be able to collect it and use it and make the most of it, and to gather the insights that organizations want their decision makers to have. And obviously within the traditional organization these days, much of the responsibility for looking after all that data falls on the IT leadership, IT managers, IT directors, CIOs, and so forth. You've described there very well some of the big sort of macro challenges around all this data. But looking within an organization, what are the specific challenges that this produces for technology decision makers?
Yeah, that's a great question, because the angle that most people will take on this question is, what do you do with the data? Because that's something that every company needs to solve. You have data. It can be internal data that you produce from your own users, and it can be publicly available data that you collect from the web. And then you need data science team, you need data visualization tools, you need to be able to clean the data, to parse it, to understand what the trends are, and so on and so forth. And my end goal, at least from our point of view as a data collection company, not a data analysis company, is that all of the data that you will get into your team, if you're an IT leadership, in an IT leadership position, that someone who handles the data, it's pretty much useless, completely useless, if you just didn't get qualified data. And this is the biggest issue today. I'm saying it from looking on our customers, more than 10,000 customers, including the biggest enterprises in the world, but also based on a very recent survey that we conducted just this month, which look at the financial market for this specific survey. And 80% of those surveyed expressed that they require more competitive insights, which makes sense. But the way to, as I see it, the way to reach these competitive insights from the data starts by getting the right data. So it's not as easy as it sounds, for the same reasons I mentioned. First of all, you will get blocked trying to collect large-scale data from publicly available sources. You will get blocked. That's the reality. And the second thing is that you will only see what your eyes as an individual consumer are seeing. And this is just not what other users will see. So you're going to rely on data that is only partially true. Ask any data scientist, they will tell you that they will prefer to have no data than wrong data, because it's better to go to the decision makers saying, listen, we just don't know, rather than saying, listen, this is the right direction, when it's actually the wrong direction. So the quality of the data is today, in my eyes, the biggest challenge for tech decision makers.
Now, let's pick up on some of those points, Or, and delve a little bit deeper into some of them. And let's be clear about the type of data we're talking about here. You made the distinction just now between data that an organization generates themselves within their organization, and data that's available in the public domain, typically on the web, that's available, that can be collected from public information sources. Let's talk about that, because I know that's the area that you're most interested in, that area of collecting data. Right. How can that data be collected in such a way as to make it useful for an organization? And you've talked already about some of the complications there, in terms of, I might see different data from an e-commerce website here in the UK from what you see at an e-commerce website in Israel.
Correct. So yeah, basically the data that we're talking about is pretty much everything that you can see with your own eyes when you're trying to do something. And I'll give a few examples. All of it, once again, is openly available online data. Okay? Nothing behind like a login. We're not talking about data that is personal to you and you keep it personal. Only everything that you can just type in a domain in the URL and see within your own eyes. So whether it is e-commerce companies looking for competitive market research, such as pricing data or competitive offerings, even things like what are the shipping dates and timeframes and rates for this product in that area. This is a major competitive information that you must have as an e-commerce company if you want to win that conversion. Because when you want to buy your new, iPhone, you'll open like 5 different tabs and compare as a user. And every user cares about different things. We all care about price. We want it now, so shipping dates and things like that. But you have hundreds of different data points in these product pages. So if you want to make sure you cover everything and you want to win every conversion, then you need to actually collect all these data points. Another example would be online travel sites that have faced huge shifts during the year and during COVID. Very similar to e-commerce, they, again, need to collect all these data points that their users will see on their competitor websites. I won't book my next hotel if I'm missing a few, if that website don't know to tell me if I have Wi-Fi availability in my room or not. So this is just one example of one data point that you need to make sure that you have, and one of the ways to have it is to collect it from open sources. Last example I'll share, finance services, for example, like banks or hedge funds. These guys are frequently using external or what used to be called alternative data sources to verify investment decisions. Now we're not talking anymore about getting the quarterly report from the last quarter of this and that company. That's literally looking on past data. Why would you want to get decisions with a lot of money at stake on data from 3 months ago when you can get it on data from yesterday? So we see a major shift with these organizations into getting decisions based on online data, which is almost real-time data.
Yeah, there are lots of sources of this sort of information that you're talking about online. Lots of organizations that provide it. Lots of websites that provide it. But I'm sure you've come across this. I know when I start talking to people about data collection and data gathering, these days it sort of makes the hairs on the back of people's necks stand up a little bit. There's a lot of discomfort around the idea of collecting all this data. And in particular, there's a lot of discussion about the ethics and some of the ethical issues around data collection. Why do you think this has become such an important topic? And what is it that organizations need to know to make sure they don't fall foul of some of those ethical concerns?
Yeah, I think it's a great conversation topic, mostly because, like you said, people are scared of it. The reason that they're scared of it is because just the term data in the recent years is associated with private data, PII, GDPR, all these a bit scary, terms. But actually, two things. First of all, it's a good thing. So the ICO and all of that GDPR and CCPA regulation, I think it's an amazing thing, because finally you don't have any gray areas. You have white and black, good, bad, right, wrong. Then you can decide where you want to be, which is, you should strive to be on the right side, obviously, but at least things are clear. The second thing is that what we're actually talking about in this context of public data collection of web data, publicly available web data, has nothing to do with private data. So first of all, there's a confusion thanks to the ICO's amazing, I'm being dead serious here, ICO amazing educational process that they've done along in the past 5-6 years. But now companies need to start to understand that this is all done. Private data is done. You have, we've ticked this checkbox. Now let's talk about how you get the data. And I agree, there's a growing awareness, but not enough actually has been done in this area. As always, the technology moves much faster than the regulators do. And this is why the responsibility lies on each and every one of us, everyone who wants to collect data, no matter if it's us, the infrastructure, the service, or if it's our customer that points in the direction and tells us, I want to get this data. Until we will have proper regulations, it's our responsibility. If you do not follow well-defined ethical guidelines, you can unintentionally cause enormous damage. Just I'll finish my answer with a short analogy I like to use that can help people that don't fully understand what the hell we're talking about. So think about a fisherman going out to the ocean to catch fish. That's his job, which is fine. If he'll catch too many fish in a very short time period in just one spot, one location, next year he won't have any fish to catch. He's literally damaging his own ecosystem. While doing so, he's also damaging his colleagues and the nature in this case. And the analogy is that the internet is that ocean, the fish is the data. If you're not being careful about the data you collect, how you collect it, if you're trying to collect it too fast without understanding that you can get a server shut down because you did too much in very short time period, then you'll damage the ecosystem. You won't be able to collect that data anymore. Your colleagues won't be able to collect this data anymore. The users of the website that you approached won't be able to use it, and nothing will work. So, and you don't really have enough regulation there. So this is why we try to talk a lot about the ethical aspect of it, so people will just take responsibility. Just the way to do it, at least in my eyes, because you still don't have like a white paper to read or any significant guidelines to follow, just take out the money factor for a moment from this project that you want to do, from this data collection you need to execute, and just, when people come to us asking to collect data, and it's something new that we never done before, and it's legal. I'm not talking about illegal things that it's easy to define, right? To decide. There's something that is legal, but you're not sure if you should be doing it. Just take out the money factor for a second, and then it will all be clear. Think that it won't cost you anything to do it, but you also won't earn. And then if it's something that is not ethical, it will be crystal clear and just say, okay, no, I don't want to do it. We have a few use cases like that it help us to basically to refuse and decide we don't want to be there. It's legal, but no real value will be added to the world, so let's not do it.
We've talked a lot about principles here, let's talk a little bit about something practical, perhaps. You've highlighted a lot of issues around data, the quantity, the quality, the complexity, ethical issues, the increasing need for real-time data to be able to make timely business decisions. Now, you mentioned you work with a lot of organizations that are trying to deal with some of these challenges, and they're using data collection to benefit their business. Tell us how they're going about doing this. What are these organizations actually in practice doing in order to overcome these issues and turn the practices of data collection to the benefit of their organization?
Okay, yeah. So I'll start with a general answer, and then I'll share a few specifics. So just I'll answer it from the general answer will come from a very different angle. Okay, think about COVID. You have as a country, okay, you have your internal data, domestic data from your own citizens that you can analyze and try to understand, what's going on, what we should do next, how we should, stop the pandemic, things like that. We all know now very well, but think about it, March last year, no one knew anything. And you should do that. And let's imagine that the country is a business. Isn't it obvious that to benefit this business, this country, and the current goal is to end the pandemic, you should also look around outside your borders and try to understand what others are doing? So that's like the most general way for me to explain why you need to collect web-based data to benefit your business. You're just relying on your own users. It's trying to run a business with one eye closed. Now, more specifically, let's just take the financial and insurance market, for example. I said we just conducted an in-depth survey. So let me now share a few interesting numbers. 95% of financial services have been relying on outside information, okay, to contribute towards business success in the past year. Okay, and this is not us saying, this is the actual CIOs, CDOs, IT professional in these financial services companies answering. Okay. 64% of organizations that rely on alternative data, which is that data that is all around us on the web, they rely on this data when building business strategies. They say that alternative or external data impact their investing strategy. Okay, we're talking about companies that manage tens of billions of dollars, our money, by the way, and they get decisions of where and how to invest our money to generate the highest ROI. And 59% of them say it impacts their customer experience strategy. Those are significant numbers that reflect great reliance on web data. And it's just from the financial and insurance markets, which, by the way, are not the most. We have other markets like e-commerce and travel that are way more advanced in relying on data, external data sources to get decisions. So the financial market that is known for sticking more to the traditional data like quarterly reports is clearly shifting to non-traditional data sources, but this is true for almost every other industry.
I mean, obviously, with financial services organizations are a great example. They're only going to be doing this because of the benefit that they can see out of it, clearly. We've talked about data as the new oil, data being more valuable than gold, that sort of thing. So let's talk a little bit more about the dirty word of money here. Inevitably, there are going to be organizations listening to the discussion we're having here, thinking, yeah, this all sounds well and good, but how do I make money out of this? How does my organization make money out of this? If you think of some of the more mature organizations you work with, maybe they're financial services organizations again, maybe they're in different sectors. Where have those organizations delivered the sort of real measurable benefits from data collection that would help show another organization how to go about building a business case for pursuing a similar sort of initiative?
Yeah, so I would say that 5 years ago, for sure 10 years ago, I would actually need to try and convince organizations to rely on data and obviously to collect this data. Now, honestly, it's less of an issue because everyone are doing it, and you can't really, you don't really see many companies that get decisions not based on data. I'm happy that we're already there. And it's clear why we started this conversation by just mentioning the amount of data that is out there. Okay, it's like gold, like you said, it's there. So someone will take it, and if someone took it and it showed success, the rest will follow. We've passed this point already. Data is becoming more and more of a commodity. So it's very clear for most organizations today. Still, just a few examples. If someone is not convinced yet, before launching a new offer or a product to the market, I don't need to convince anyone that you need to do a market research. Right? But if all of your competitors are online, and that's the reality, then obviously you will need to collect that data from an online source, and then to clean it, to parse it, to analyze it, and to get the decisions. So before spending hundreds of or even millions of dollars on a product, you want to make sure your product is going to be acquired. And market research is a mission critical here. And so if someone start by doing a simple market research, they will just show the value, and then they will just scale up their data collection operation for more aspects of their business. I'm sure we see it happens every day.
Okay, that's an interesting use case that you've highlighted there, and obviously you've talked about financial services as a sector and the way that they're using this sort of public domain external data to help their businesses. Could you perhaps bring this all to life by talking through one or two specific examples of organizations that you've worked with, what they've done, and how they've gone about helping their businesses as a result of using data in this way?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I would love to start with something that is less obvious and traditional. We just produced a joint case study with this company called Matheson, which is an innovative startup that is helping companies with promoting diversity recruitment. It sounds very niche, but there's a big problem because you need to have supply and demand. You have recruiters, you need to have job seekers. That all falls into this segment of diversity recruitment. So they're using online data to shed a light on those unrepresented. They do that by collecting data from relevant sources about people and their employment history and what they're looking for and things like that. And they parse all this data and help the recruiters to find the right candidate for them. So even if in a very, very niche market, you just need data to succeed. It's more obvious, obviously, also when you're talking about something that is more generic, like just recruiting, not diversity recruitment. They're also using this company also using online data to build a platform that is truly unbiased, which is interesting. Another example is a UK company actually called eFundamentals that has recently tripled in its size. They're a digital shelf analytics platform that helps consumer packaged goods companies understand how they can sell more products online. Their customers are companies like Pepsi and Kellogg's and Starbucks and big names like that. They can't deliver the results to their customers by being blind. They have to see what's going on online. They have to see it better, faster, bigger than their customers can see it. And it's all based on collecting this data that is just sitting there waiting for someone to look at it. There are also multiple universities and research centers using web-based data to look into burning matters such as social justice across India. We have research that is using us to try and understand what's going on in the law system in India by collecting publicly available records to try and improve the situation. We have universities using our platform to understand what's going on in the US with student loans management, things that you can never imagine. By the way, that's an important point also. We never thought of any of our use cases. It always came from a need of a customer, and the data was always the solution. It was always the fundamental start of the solution for the bigger problem. You just have to start with intel, with intelligence. You need data to decide on a direction.
Yeah, good examples there of what some organizations are doing now. Let's perhaps take a little look into the future. Now we joked earlier on that 5 years from now we might be looking back on these times and thinking how lucky we were to have so little data compared with what we're likely to have in the future. But more broadly, where do you see this whole issue around data collection going next? What's coming around the corner? Where do you see the challenges and perhaps more importantly the opportunities of data collection in 5 or 10 years from now?
Yeah, so I expect two trends to happen. They already started. The first trend is more data. That's obvious. We talked about it, but companies will be more and more reliant on this data to get decisions. The second trend, however, is kind of the complete opposite. It's collecting this data is going to be more complex. Not even talking about what to do with all this data. That's another issue. Talking about collecting it. So these two trends goes together. Unfortunately, it can also be differently if the publicly available data will actually be public for everyone, but that's not the case. The opposite is the truth. So these two trends, this is what I think that's going to happen. We see it now. It's just going to go bigger and stronger.
Yeah, I mean, there's clearly so much more we could talk about around this whole area of the growth of data and of data collection. But we're coming towards the end of our time for this discussion now. So perhaps just to wrap all of this up, if you could think about an organization today that's looking to make better use of the data that they have or could have available to them, if you could give a decision maker at that organization one piece of advice that would help to set them on the right path to being able to make use of some of that data, what do you think that would be?
Yeah, so I think that I'm going to surprise you, but my piece of advice will be start small. So just if you're new to data collection, just try to identify one major issue that you're currently trying to solve. Take one person, one employee, skilled employee, to try and collect data that can help solving this issue, but ask him to do it manually in a very small scale. Okay? So if you can get in a day just a Google sheet or an Excel with the data that you thought that can help you solve this issue, it will be extremely valuable, because if in one day you can understand that this data is really beneficial to get to a better outcome, then you can start working on scaling it up. So as I said earlier, that the data quality and understanding what data you actually need to extract, this is the biggest challenge now as I see it. Don't try to just do everything. Start small, do it manually, see that it actually shows signs that it's the right direction, it can help you solve a real problem, then work on automating it, scaling it up, and things like that. Because I see too many companies trying to go into full power, 100% production, full scale, without even manually taking like 2 days, a week to manually see that it's actually what you need. So that's my piece of advice when you want to do something new. Even if you already know how to collect data and you're doing it, If you're trying to solve a new problem, start small manually, see that it works, then scale up fast.
That's a really nice, simple tip, I think, for any organization, just to try and make a very easy assessment of the benefits of improving their use of all the huge amounts of data they could potentially be collecting from across the internet. Lenchner from Bright Data. It's been a really interesting conversation. Thank you so much for joining us to give some of your perspectives around this hugely important issue. That's all we've got time for on this podcast now. I hope you've been able to take away some useful hints and tips, some ideas that you can start to build into your strategy for improving the data that you collect and turning that data into insights that will help your business. It's goodbye from me and goodbye from all.
Thank you, Brian. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.